Welcome into the Fade. I'm Clay Travis. She is Kelly Stewart. We are rolling through the Super Bowl edition of the program. Now, you may be noticing, wait, you guys are not in New Orleans. We are taping this on Tuesday. Kelly is super sick. I will let her run through all of the different things that have conspired for her. You guys may remember on Friday, I thought I was going to die. I got the flu. First time I've gotten sick in like a decade. I immediately got in bed, stayed in bed for like 48 hours. Cautiously, I am somewhat optimistic. In fact, I'm just remembering right now that I need to check in for my flight. So while we're starting the show right now, I am going to check in for my flight. I feel pretty good, and we are scheduled to go down to New Orleans for the show, but I will not be doing this show with Kelly, as you can now see. So, Kelly, how do you feel? The doctor said you can tell everybody what you've got. I mean, I don't think it's like crazy, but that you were basically not clearable health-wise to be able to travel. I'm glad you're doing the show with us right now, but how awful do you feel? What is the combination of sicknesses with which you have been afflicted?
See, Clay, you're smarter than I am. Okay, so Wednesday, I did some shows. I started to feel a little off. No. Push through. I went to the gym on Thursday. I worked. Friday, gym, worked, did hot mic. We made fun of you for being sick. I was like, I'm starting to feel a little. Boom, Saturday, like a ton of bricks. I went and got an IV. I thought, you know what? I don't get sick. Give me all the good stuff. I got to go to New Orleans tomorrow. Sunday I felt like somebody ran me over, like with a car. Like I had coughed so violently I couldn't like breathe without pain. And then yesterday I was like, okay, I'm going to get on this flight. I'm going to go to New Orleans. And, my doctor said, look, you can go to New Orleans. You have pneumonia. You can go. You're going to be in cigarette smoke at the casino. You're not going to sleep. There's going to be booze. He goes, so here's my question. Would you like to take the risk of prolonging this for the next possibly a month, right? Because it doesn't just go away. It's pneumonia. And what if you had to go to the hospital in New Orleans versus Florida? And I was like, okay. And he goes, and oh, by the way, now instead of flying on Sunday and Thursday, now you're flying on Monday night and Thursday morning. He goes, do you think that the change in cabin pressure is going to bother you? And I'm like, oh, no, I'm totally fine. This eye is only 2 inches lower than this eye. I can't hear out of this ear already. I'm sure getting on an airplane is the smartest thing I can do. So because I screwed up and I did not listen to my body on Wednesday and Thursday, I ultimately paid the price. I'm devastated. The kids that I was supposed to go with early in the week before I met up with OutKick did my favorite NFL slot machine today, and they sent me a picture. One of the guys won $6,000. I'm like, that's my machine. I was supposed to be there. Look, this is what happens when you get old, Clay. I'm just getting old. Just can't hang like I used to. Dry January. Never again am I participating. I blame it on dry January.
I feel pretty good, but I was supposed to be hosting Fox and Friends in New York City. So I feel a little bit fortunate that even though I felt awful that it hit at the exact right time. I was like working out at 10 a.m. on Friday, and I stopped I never do that. Like once I start, I stopped. I was like, man, I feel really queasy. I don't feel good at all. And so as I was doing my radio show, Clay and Buck, I was getting progressively sicker. And like every 5 minutes, I was like, oh, I'm worse than I was the 5 minutes before. And then about 2 o'clock my time, I had to do a hit on Fox News. And I still have the bucket next to me. I was afraid because I didn't want to cancel at the last minute. Like, not that it's going to totally destroy the show, but I had said I was going to be there. I was afraid, Kelly, that I might lean over and throw up during the segment. Like, that's how hard I was fighting it. And then as soon as I was done, I climbed into bed. I covered myself, and I was there basically like with heat, fever, crazy surges for the next 2 days. And now I feel pretty good. I took that Thanaflu, whatever it's called, Tamiflu. I've never taken it before. I don't know that it helped, to be fair. But my wife was like, hey, take this. It's a 5-day pill. It's supposed to shorten the flu if you take it right when you start getting sick. I took it right as I got sick. And I I feel like, knock on wood, by tomorrow I may be 100%. We're going to get to the Super Bowl in a minute. I don't know if you saw this. My oldest is 17, just turned 17, junior in high school, and he's taken the ACT and the SAT. And he, like many teenagers, is busy, but also doesn't listen that much to his parents about how we think he should spend his time. And so he hasn't been spending as much time as we think getting ready to take the ACT and the SAT. And as a result, he is spending as much time as prep. I get blamed for that, by the way, because, I'm the dad, and dads get blamed for everything whenever kids do things wrong. That seems to be the rules. And so I challenged him to an ACT. So I have not taken the ACT, Kelly, I don't think since like 1995 or 96 or whatever. Tonight, in my free time, I am sitting down for an ACT. How much of an underdog would you make me head-to-head versus my 17-year-old? What odds would you need on me to beat him on the ACT tonight?
Okay, so here I kind of caught a little bit of this waiting in the wings to start the show. So your point is, if you beat him in the ACT, he has to take more classes to prep? Or,
no, I don't know
game?
that he will sit down. Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if he will sit down and take a single full ACT test before the actual ACT, but for me challenging him and telling him, hey, I think I can beat you. So this is at minimum me getting him to do a 3-hour test and then go back and look through all the questions and see what he got right, what he got wrong. I don't know that I can trust him to take the full test, in other words, if I hadn't challenged him. So that is the impetus. The impetus is he needs to prep more. Okay, Dad will challenge you head-to-head, so at least we're getting one full ACT test before he takes the ACT.
I think that's very smart. Far better than what I did before taking my ACT. But then I scored well enough. I got into K-State. My mom had already told me, I'm not letting you go to Arizona State. So at that point, I stopped trying hard. Like, see, this is where the parenting thing, like, you got to know who each kid is. And it's going to be different with all three boys. I guarantee it. I think, Clay, the ACT is, well, it's easier than the SAT. And it depends on where you grew up and what tests you have to take, right? We grew up in the Midwest. The ACT was king, unless you're going to go to an East Coast school, and then you took the SAT. So I only took the ACT. And I didn't think it was that hard. I also didn't study. And I thought, okay, I'm a sophomore in high school. I can always retake it, right? But then I got I think I got like a 26 or 27 without even trying. And I was
It's a great score. It's a very good score, especially when you're like a sophomore, whatever grade. You can get into, I don't know what the test is now. You could get into most schools with a decent 20-something, right? Back in, especially state schools. I think surely you probably still can. I mean, if you're getting a teenage number, like in the 19s, 20s, 21s, you're probably in trouble. But I don't even know. I think it goes to 36, but people don't ever understand this, like perfect, the bell curve. Yeah, like the difference between a 36 and a 32 can be like 6 questions, right? Like, in other words, like the bell curve is what it is, that most people get X scores. And then when you move down the fringe, like it gets more and more difficult. The numbers get more substantial, but the difference between, say, a 36 and a 32 is way less than the difference between a 22 and a 28, right? Like, even though anyway, so people don't understand bell curves. So how much would you need? He's a smart kid. He's also significantly actually been in school learning the things that they test you on the ACT about. So how much would you need, you think, on me to think, oh, Clay's going to beat a 17-year-old? What odds would you have to get?
That's where it's really hard, right? Because I am assuming that your son goes to a really good school and they've definitely done prep work, whether it's specific for ACT. They do a lot of testing. So number one, it all depends on if you're a good test taker, right? You mentioned math on your other show, and I thought, I use math every day. My high school math teacher is now the principal of my high school. And he said he uses me as an example at least once a week because I struggled so greatly with math algebra specifically, that he's like, and you use it every day now. And I'm like, yeah, but Mr. Hoyt, I don't use a graphing calculator. I don't use things that you taught me, the Pythagorean theorem. I don't use any of that. I use some basic statistics, which most of I already get from the internet that somebody else has already done the basic work on. Or we have a little thing called Excel, and it's wonderful. You just plug in the things that you need, and it kind of spits out some information for you. That's where my concern is what is on this test. I mean, Clay, I took the test 20 years ago, 24 years ago. That's a long time. Tests change. I don't know what to expect. I expect you to do very great on, of course, the writing portion. But who's going to grade that for you?
I think it grades. Oh, my wife has said that she'll grade the essays, which is very, very funny. And I'm going to be honest with you. She's going to be way tougher on me than she is going to be on him. But I think I'm going to smoke him on the verbal side. I tried to get out of having to take the math and just said, I'm not going to do. I think my wife wants me to be humiliated. I think that's what this is really about. She wants me to just get defeated by the ACT math side. And I know that's going to happen.
It's really hard. The new math that they teach the kids.
Oh, I don't understand the new math. Yes.
Is I mean, I had to hire a tutor for our niece because I was like, I can't help her with this. Like, this is 4th and 5th grade math that I can do on my own, but the work
it's all
the teacher has to show.
And like, I don't understand how they teach it. Honestly, you're right. Like, I didn't say I don't use math. I said I don't use like algebra, geometry, or algebra 2. Like, my brain works really fast when it comes to arguments, when it comes to analyzing data, like ProbStat, like that kind of thing. But when it's just raw calculations, like a lot of gamblers are phenomenal at math, right? They can be like, and by the way, poker players, I can tell, when you're playing poker, these guys have calculators in their minds where every time a card turns over, they can be like, okay, my probability of winning just went from 62.3 to 51.6, and therefore I should adjust my bet. Like, these guys are savants, and I don't have that mathematical ability like a great poker player would. But if you put me down and you're like, hey, analyze this document, read it, reading comprehension, make arguments, like, I'll test off the chart. So I think I'm going to be super lopsided. The question is really, how much of an advantage does he deserve based on the fact that his performance, I think, is going to be much more balanced because he actually knows, how to do a quadratic equation or whatever the heck it's called.
If you don't get a 30 or higher, I'm going to be really disappointed. And now, not today, but when my brain is less convoluted and fogged, I want to retake the ACT. There's got to be something online that you can take, right? Like,
yeah, I'm sure.
Know.
And by the way, this is a parenting tactic that I have found good that works with boys, by the way. I don't know if I don't have girls, so I don't know if it works.
I think it's competitive children. Like, I think it would have worked with me because I'm a competitive type
that's
person.
Right. Well, I think for my boys, competition is one of the best ways to get them to do anything. I mean, it's why I think, frankly, sports is so good for kids in general, because gets them out of the house, gets them off social media, all these things that are so incredibly important. But also, it's like, hey, sometimes getting your ass kicked is important. Seeing how you stack up and win or lose against someone else is important. Learning how to do it, even if it's frustrating. So I have found that challenging my boys is a good way to get them to accept new challenges themselves. So this is what is scheduled for tonight. I will share people the results when they come in. All right, Super Bowl. Do you have any favorite prop bets at all? Something that, again, we're doing this on Tuesday, and you are near death, but something that you would love to wager right now. Do you buy into the prop bet marketplace? I mean, this is prop off the charts numbers from out there, the likes of which, frankly, are even hard to keep up with.
Not near death. I am okay. I am just fatigued easily and just sound awful, Clay. So don't make everybody feel bad for me. Feel bad for me that I'm not in New Orleans. That's what you can feel bad for me for. No, in all seriousness, I'm not a big prop better. We all know this. Every year during the Super Bowl, though, all of these sportsbooks put out these just massive, just whether it's packets or now you go online and you just sift through. There's just so much to look for. And as somebody who likes the under, that tells me like usually I can just sit back, I can just hang out, I can wait. Because we all know that most bettors are going to want to bet overs, right? They're going to want to bet Kareem Hunt over. They're going to want to bet Saquon Barkley anytime touchdown. They're going to want to bet AJ Brown over receptions, over receiving, right? They want to bet the things that are fun. And nobody thinks that unders are fun. And that's the real reality. And so I'm kind of looking for those diamond in the rough unders, kind of looking for some things that say, okay, what can I find? I'll tell you what I already have bet, and then what a few things that are on my radar that are, I'll say this chalky, Clay. I've got a list here, and I hate that. That's part of the reason why I don't love props, is because instead of moving like the yardage, the books will just move the juice. So it might be minus 140 on Tuesday, and then it's minus 210 on Sunday, and you're going, never mind. You snooze, you lose. So just keep that in mind. I did bet Saquon Barkley MVP. I do think this is going to be a low-scoring, really fun. What did
you get
game.
him at, like around 3-1?
No. I got plus 260, and I bet it 5 or 6 days. No,
I'm looking right now on. Yeah, it's plus 280 where I'm looking right now. So, by the way, Patrick Mahomes nearly even money. That's not going to stagger anybody that he would be the overwhelming favorite. Let me hit at some others for people out there who are curious. Jalen Hurts, what I'm looking at right now, plus 350. Travis Kelce, 18-1. Xavier Worthy, 31-1. Here's one I'm going to play, Kelly. A.J. Brown, 33-1. I can see a world where A.J. Brown goes off. Some of you out there are going to say, well, Jalen Hurts is throwing in the ball. That's correct. But if A.J. Brown, let's say, had 6 catches, 160 yards, 2 touchdowns, I think that would go more towards A.J. Brown unless Jalen Hurts goes out and throws for 400 yards, right? So that, to me, is one that I see some value in. And then defensive players, Kelly, sorry to cut you off, but sometimes there's a great rush defensive end. We both hit, you and I did, I think, on Von Miller MVP back in the Peyton Manning versus Cam Newton Super Bowl, which was like 7 or 8 years ago now. Yeah. Yes. I tried to go for Bosa. He had a couple of decent games back in the day. But my point on the defense is, I don't know that there's a guy on the defensive side of the ball that is so dominant getting at the quarterback that I see value there. Does that make sense?
No, you're absolutely right. Listen, Cam has not been the same since Von Miller ruined his life in that Super Bowl, right? I think there's a lot of really good defensive guys, right? The Eagles lead the league in defensive EPA since week 10, right? But who is the most dominant? Is it Jalen Carter? Is it Nolan Smith? I don't know. And so I don't know if I can pinpoint one guy, because last year I was doing the same thing. I was looking for that elusive player on the 49ers. I liked the 49ers to win the game. And I thought, okay, let me try to see if there is somebody on the MVP side of things. And I tried to make a case for Fred Warner. I tried to make a case for a couple other guys. I ultimately didn't end up getting to the window with them, but also the Niners defense had a terrible fourth quarter.
So you took Saquon. I mentioned that I might take A.J. Brown. All right, let's just dive into the game itself. Kelly, to me, this just comes down to, I was at the last Chiefs-Eagles game out in Arizona. Chiefs 1.5-point favorite, over-under around 48.5. I'm probably going to be the ultimate square here. I'm not betting against Patrick Mahomes. I like the Chiefs' defense, but ultimately I think if you give Mahomes the ball with a chance to win, he's going to win. And so I'm taking the Chiefs. I'm not overthinking it. I think he's the better quarterback. I think they have a really good defense. Where I really waffled more so than that was over-under. And I may be making a poor choice here in thinking back to the last game these two teams played a couple of years ago. I'm going to take the over. 48.5. I feel like that's probably square in both directions. And that one I'm a little bit wobblier on. Do you like either side? again, the defenses have been very good, but I feel like the explosive big play potential of Saquon and A.J. Brown, and ultimately my belief that you're not going to hold. I don't think that the Chiefs are going to be in a Super Bowl at this point in time in Patrick Mahomes' career, and you're suddenly going to hold him to, 17 points, 20 points. I think that he's going to put up 21 plus, and then it gets harder to justify staying under that number.
Yeah, Clay, it's not going to be fun holding an under ticket for the Super Bowl. I don't know anybody that wants to. I do lean towards the under here. You mentioned the last time these two met. I mean, I think it's an easy argument to say the Chiefs' defense is better. The Eagles' defense is better, right? I just told you about the Eagles' defensive EPA and how they've just completely dominated for the last, 12, 13 weeks. Do I want to bet against Patrick Mahomes? No, of course I don't. Do you think this is a fun place to be? I mean, I told you a couple weeks ago when we did the show, I like the Bills in a teaser. I like the over. And Chiefs fans are still mad at me. And I'm like, they're like, you're just mad you lost. I'm like, what? I had the over and the Bills in a teaser. I didn't lose. That was what I was not wanting to do. If you have 1.5, I don't know how you don't find something to tease the Eagles with. That's what makes it difficult with this being the last game, right? Like, what do you tease the Eagles with? You're not supposed to tease totals. Maybe you can tease it with the under here. Maybe. I don't love the idea of doing so. I know plenty of people that will do it. I can't stress this enough. As somebody, as we talked about with math, right? I'm bad at math, good at statistics, good at money, and AKA finance. I keep waiting for the bottom to fall out of this Chiefs team, right? They've 17-1 possession games. 17 straight, they've won 17-1 possession games. That is insane. That's over like the last 2 seasons.
I know. I saw that stat and I couldn't believe it. I mean, it's unprecedented.
What do you do?
I also think, by the way, I also think, and one of our writers at OutKick, and I don't remember which one, actually said, and I thought it was a good argument, that the Chiefs might be in line to not benefit from close calls in the Super Bowl because officials in the back of their heads have been thinking, oh, they're getting every call. And so it may work to the Eagles' favor on this big of a stage because they don't want to leave. The NFL doesn't, and even the officials themselves, I think, and have one of the prevailing narrative arcs of the Super Bowl being, oh, the Chiefs got all the borderline calls again. Again, I don't think it's a conscious choice. I do think in the back of your mind, as you're running down the field and you're like, oh, was that pass interference or not? Do you just think for a moment, man, the Chiefs are going to gain 40 yards. This could decide the game, and you don't yank that flag out. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me.
I think that could, in a 50-50 manner, actually end up working against the Chiefs in a close game, which is counter, I think, to a lot of the narrative that's out there.
Right. Listen, the narrative that's out there is the eye test, right? I made a 1984 reference on Twitter about your eyes and ears deceiving you. And that's what Chiefs fans want you to believe. And they all got mad and up in arms at me. But that is the reality. I mean, we all watch the same game. Whether you have money on the Chiefs or you have money on the Bills, it doesn't matter. You should be able to objectively look at the game. And fans are unable to do that. And I think that's one thing that the NFL is going to have to put to rest in some capacity. I know Roger Goodell made a joke about having the script or whatever, but we'll see how that ends up panning out. I do like the Eagles here. Again, I think finding a spot to tease them with is the safest route. I did take the 1.5. I did take some plus 110. I took a little bit more at plus 105. We've seen this one kind of bounce back and forth. A lot of what I would call sharper books move to 1. I think ultimately, Clay, this is going to be a really good game. I mean, the last time you mentioned these two played, it was 24-14 at half. And the Chiefs just epic second half, right? I remember because I was watching with Eagles and Chiefs fans at my house. And I was like, oh boy, here they come. And that's the terrifying thing when holding an Eagles ticket. I always like to remind people, this is just one game, right? This is a standalone game. I'm going to have some money on the coin flip. Of course, I love to bet heads. I'm going to have some money on shortest touchdown. I'm going to probably try to find something to parlay it with because it's just gotten juiced to all oblivion. Shortest touchdown under 1.5 yards. I will say this, the longest touchdown, less than 48 yards, is 6-1 over the last 7 Super Bowls. So maybe Saquon breaks it, maybe he doesn't, but that's something that's been done really well. Score the last 2 minutes of the second half, has cashed 6 out of the last 9 Super Bowls. There's a lot of really fun props that you can just kind of mix and mingle, if you will. I like Dallas Goedert over 4.5 receptions. We know that there's a couple of things that Steve Spagnuolo's defense can be exploited by. One is a big body tight end like Dallas, and 2 is possibly Saquon Barkley. But at this point, going over his rushing yards was just too much, which is why I ultimately took him for MVP. I think if he can exploit this Chiefs run defense, which is probably the only thing they're not great at, right? This defense is significantly better and has shown over the last couple of years. I mean, even when Patrick was throwing more interceptions than touchdown passes to start the season, they were winning games because of this defense. Like, I don't want to take away from that, but I do think Saquon Barkley has been on a historic run. And if the Eagles are able to prevail and he scores a game-winning touchdown by, breaking through 3 guys and rushes for another, 30 yards to score that game-winning touchdown, he will be MVP.
Kelly, I don't want to have to take any more of your voice. I appreciate you being a trooper, hanging out with us here. The fade has been awesome. We'll probably do some shows in the NCAA tournament when basketball season is back in earnest, meaning the NCAA tournament is underway. So you got that to look forward to. But I want to thank you for all the work. It's been really fun. Let's hope we win some games. Any last words before the Super Bowl and hopefully before you get back to being fully healthy?
No, Clay, I just want to say thanks for always taking time out of your busy schedule. And I want to thank our audience for hanging out with us. And I hope you guys have so much fun this weekend. I'm very jealous. I will be on my couch. And ultimately, we're going to get back to it soon. I'm ready. I'm ready for a glass of wine. I should have never gave it up.
Fingers crossed, no more illnesses anytime soon. Everybody stay healthy. Get your bets in. Have an awesome Super Bowl. I am Clay Travis. She is Kelly Stewart. Starting tomorrow, I'll be down in New Orleans. Look forward to seeing a lot of you guys down there. This has been The Fade.